Good day to you, and welcome back to the podcast Catch It, a new perception. My name is Ketuk. I look forward to being able to continue to do these, not get stuck in my head, think, I don't have enough listeners, I don't have enough viewers, I'm not enough. Any of those things that would get me stuck to stop. The reason I talk about that, now I'm going to talk more about a vision rather than the opposite. I'm going to talk more about the positive rather than the negative. So I don't talk a lot about depression or mental illness and things like that, even though some of those things may be present at times. It's more about the solution out of that. So rather than talking about what the problem is, I'd rather talk about what the solution is. It's just the way I have been gifted to do things. And I say that because that was gifted to me by the elders that came before me, by the mentors that I've had, and the people that I look up to, my spiritual advisors, and all these people that have come before me have always taught me to focus on what the solution is. Don't worry about the problem. Don't stay stuck in the problem. Recognize it. Give it some validity as it needs to at the moment in whatever way it needs. Do not get stuck in it. Continue to move through it. Don't get stuck in something emotionally or otherwise. Allow yourself to move all the way through it. Okay, what I'm talking about here is the idea that we can see things different, that we can hear things different, that we don't get stuck in something and focus on what we don't need to focus on, because then it becomes bigger. So I will talk about this for a moment when it comes to depression, when it comes to mental illness or any of these things, that we can stay stuck in it if that's where our focus becomes. Focus on the depression and the depression stays and we stay in it. Focus on the solution out of it and all of a sudden we see things different. The light is there. Okay, it creeps back in. All of a sudden, we continue to look forward. We continue to see it differently. Okay? Now, this whole idea of not getting stuck in something mentally or emotionally, I think is important. And to see the brighter side of things. I know I was speaking with a friend of mine recently whose wife had returned to the spirit world, and they spent decades together. They have adult children, they have grandchildren, they have all these people that are now around him on a more regular basis since she has left. And it's something that he has great memories of, even when she was late in life, when she wasn't wanting to leave, knowing she was on her way out, and making comments that were a little snide that are very endearing to him today. And I say that because I know that sometimes in a partnership, you can say things that are kind of like not derogatory, just kind of snide and they're cute. Okay. And he was sharing some of that with me. It was very somewhat personal in a sense. And I appreciate the fact that he's moving through life. He's not staying stuck in it. He has great memories of his wife. Wonderful memories. Through the decades, he could sit and laugh and smile the whole time he speaks of her. That is not getting stuck in it, to me. And we can do this with so many things in our life. How often will we move forward by just being able to get out of the house and go do something and see something different? We walk into a convenience store, we purchase something simple, and we walk out. Did we give them a smile? Did we greet them kindly? No matter how they greet us, they have disdain. Maybe they have some horrible things happening in their life and they don't really want to be at work and they need to be at work and they're there. And maybe it's the way they show up every day because they don't have a solution to be able to get out of it, and they suffer from depression, they suffer from mental illness, and things are difficult for them and they struggle, and you see them every day at that convenience store, or often you see them a couple times a week, however often that is, once a week, and they often seem to be the same way. Can you offer them a smile every time? Can you offer them a nice greeting every time. What appears to be a stranger is someone you don't know. I think it's important for us to take a certain action to not stay stuck in something. I think it's important, whether that's the death of a loved one, whether that's mental illness, whether that is whatever that difficulty may be, we can choose to either focus on it, allow it to resonate with us, stay in it, or we can move through it. Don't get me wrong, I do believe that there is a certain time where we need to sit in it. We sit with the darkness, we sit with the sadness, we sit with that uncomfortable feeling, so that when we move forward, we can move forward and leave it behind us. So that's not lost on me when I speak of this. And I don't talk much about sitting in that darkness. I think back to when I was a lad, I was a young child. And physical pain, I would learn to encompass it. I forget if it was a toothache or if there was a problem with the tooth that created some pain. I know it was and to me as a child, that's some difficult physical pain. And I would focus on it to allow it to subside. Literally focus on that energy, where that is, what does that feel like? I would focus on it and it wouldn't be as great. I could even do it with headaches when I was young before I began to get migraines. I did it with all kinds of different physical pain, was to focus on that physical pain. So I could sit in that darkness, if you will. I could sit in that uncomfortability, if you will, because it is uncomfortable and it is a bit dark to be able to do that. I would sit with it long enough so that when I let go and I walked out of it and I left it behind, it was behind me. I didn't need it to keep popping up. It wasn't something that keeps coming back to me. And I speak of this with a physical, it also worked for me with emotional pain, was to sit with it, to recognize it, whether I recognize my fears within that emotional pain, whether I recognize the resentment within that emotional pain, the disdain that I have for someone else, which also may be fear or resentment, or all kinds of different things that could be in that emotional pain. Grief. I may need to sit with it for a period of time so that when I walk through it, I can leave it behind. This is the essence of what I'm talking about, is to get through something and not sit in it, to see the other side, to see the brightness, to walk towards it. Some of it is to be able to be honest about where I'm at and that this is difficult up to this point. It doesn't need to be difficult the rest of the day, and it doesn't need to be difficult tomorrow. It's just been difficult up to this point. That's a process of letting go for a guy like me. Is to tell myself it doesn't need to continue to be, oh, I'll never get over this. Well, okay, you make that statement, chances are you will never get over this, whatever this is. I don't want that in my life. I don't want to grieve someone when they leave as if it's a bad thing. I got to watch my father return to the spirit world. Friends, mentors. I've watched people return to the spirit world, and it's a good thing. I think of the time that I had with them. Or I think of the journey that they'll take, that long journey that they'll take on their way to the spirit world. It may be quick, it's just a long journey in my mind. And so I think it's good. Maybe they're free of physical pain. You know, my father he had cancer when he left, and I think he lived with some physical pain, and he was free of all that. He was free of any emotional pain that he carried, and he was free of all that. How could I not be happy for him? Why would I need to be selfish and hold on to that? There's no self-care in that. When I hold on to that, there's no self-care. Do tears still come to my eyes at times? I may hear a song, I think of my father, and yes, the tears come. And I love that. And I love you, Dad, and I thank you for that. I thank you for allowing me to be able to feel that and know the love that I carry with you. Still today. One thing that I found is that if I loved someone, I probably still love them. I don't love my father less because he's not here. And I don't get caught up in the grief of missing him and him not being here. Although that may come at moments, I don't live in that place. So what may be emotional pain to someone else, for one person, for someone else, it may be moving through it and just letting go. I use certain terminology like letting go, and I know that that may mean many different things to many different people. I think of what it means to me, and when I let go, I'm free. And I hold on to something, and it just grates on me. I'm not free. I'm disturbed. I'm emotionally disturbed. I don't need to emotionally hold on to things. I need to let go. I think about when I was a youth, when I was a teenager, getting out of a relationship, trying to hold on to something that wasn't there. It did not do me any good to hold on to it. It did me a lot of good to let go of it. I think about that, and I had a lot of angst. I was just a really different person as a teenager than what I am as someone who's more mature today. At least in most ways of my life, I believe I'm more mature than I was at that time. So I have this ability to be able to move through it and not hold on to it, to let go. Now, the terminology is your own, and I think that it's important that you find the terminology that works for you and resonates with you. Continue to move through it. Don't get stuck in something emotionally or otherwise. Allow yourself to move through it all the way through it. I will continue to move through it. I don't want to get stuck in it. And by doing this podcast is one way I'm able to do that. I speak it into existence. I tell you this is what I'm going to do when sometimes that's what I aspire to be and I haven't accomplished it real well. And I tell you this is what I do, and then tomorrow morning I wake up and that's exactly what I'm doing. Because I'm going to speak it into existence, and I'm going to make it happen. And I'm going to let go. I'm not going to stay stuck. I am learning. I am seeing it differently. By doing this podcast, you allow me to see things differently. You allow me to see you differently. You allow me to see me differently. I encourage anyone that's listening to this podcast to make comments about how we can do things differently. Make comments on the idea of how we can move forward with this podcast. And the reason I say that is because sometimes when someone makes a statement to me, I can make an episode of a podcast on that. I get often they're not in the comments. Not many people comment. I don't see much for thumbs up. I don't know that people share this. I don't know. I just am unaware of what people may do or not do with this podcast individually. What I do know is that when I hear a conversation with someone else and I'm speaking with someone else and I'm sharing with them and they're sharing with me, I get inspired. And I'm like, oh, this would be great conversation for the podcast. This is what I want to continue to do, is have conversations with you as individuals, whether that's through the comments or otherwise. If that's in person, that's great. Fabulous. I look forward to it. I want to be able to take those and be inspired to be able to have more conversation here. To not get stuck in what it is that I've talked about in the past, and to bring what I have talked about in the past forward so that all of that stuff can be talked about again in a good way, circling up as our trajectory continues to rise. Looking forward to next time. Live in harmony with and use the bounty of the land to bring kindness to the world.